when I was in college, for some reason, I wound up with a...
He was a man from Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's right. He was a short, stocky man from Massachusetts who intellectual and all the things I'm not. But yet, there was something about him. He was a man of total integrity. As far as I can tell, he had only one confidant, and that was his wife. Didn't particularly care what anybody else thought. And yet, because of his intellect and because of his character, people were drawn to him. And I wound up with a 2-volume work. Page Smith, I think, was the author. So, I read that more than once because it made such an impression on me. I've kind of wondered over the years why more people didn't talk about him or refer to him. And then David McCullough did.
You constantly say in this campaign that you are a conservative. Mm-hmm. What does that mean today? Is George Bush a conservative?
Well, let's talk about me.
Okay. I thought
we might get to there. Yeah. I think that it means things that are consistent with God's design for man. It's consistent with human nature. It's consistent with the lessons of history and the lessons of the ages. They found form in the Constitution, I think, and what our founding fathers believed. They understand that man can do great and wonderful things, but man is prone to err and sometimes do terrible things. That too much power in too few hands is a dangerous thing. That power is a corrupting thing.
In all of that, you didn't mention abortion, gay rights, all things that have been part of recent presidential elections.
Those, well, you're talking about different things there. Those are issues that are before us, from which derive from principles. I don't consider them to be first principles, but the principles are what guide you in coming to positions with regard to issues. You know, the Declaration of Independence said that our basic rights come from God, not from man. The founders talked about you know, life and liberty and the importance of that, and that everything is based on those basic principles. And I take those principles and, you know, for example, I come to a pro-life conclusion there. And when we had issues, you know, for 8 years when I was in the United States Senate about whether or not the federal government should be funding, for example, abortion-related activities and things of that nature, you know, the application of those principles in that instance told me the answer was no, properly.
It's an interesting political race when you talk about some of those principles and some of those specific issues. Pat Robertson's endorsed Rudy Giuliani. You have an endorsement of one of the
National Right to Life.
National Right to Life organizations, I was going to say. Mike Huckabee seems to have the support in Iowa, certainly, a lot of what's called social conservatives. Where is the evangelical movement today? Is it splitting up? Is it going in different directions?
Well,
why is there so much diversity?
I don't think. Well, it's you know, we're a country of free people, you know, speaking our minds and doing what we think is best. And it's not as if the candidates on the Republican side all have wildly divergent views on some of these subjects. People examine the candidates' records. They look and see one guy they think would be better in the future than another. Another one might make a better leader than another one. I don't think it says anything about the movement. It would be kind of strange, I think, under the circumstances, if everybody got behind the same person, unless, of course, it was me.
How are you doing in this race? Are you glad you got in?
Yeah, I am.
You got a good life.
I've got a wonderful life, and that's
great marriage.
That's
2 new kids.
Yeah, it's just, you know, blessings beyond description, and it's a strange thing. I had an opportunity to run for president earlier. Of course, everybody does, I suppose.
Over 35.
Yeah.
So why put yourself through this?
Well,
I mean, do you have a mission? Is there a driving purpose you have beyond ambition?
I sat down with Jerry, my wife, and we talked about this a lot. And it's funny how that when your life is so full is the time you decide to do something like this. But the question became, you know, what kind of world are the kids going to grow up in? What kind of country are the kids going to grow up in? And am I at my highest and best use? You know, I've done a lot of things. I got the chance to see my country from a lot of different standpoints. I was a federal prosecutor in my 20s in Watergate and the Senate, and made a few movies and traveled around the world a lot of times, visiting foreign leaders and all. But I've stepped up a time or two, and I think it's time I stepped up again. At a time when I can do it freely and openly and be myself and do things my way, which I've been roundly criticized for, and just basically say this is the guy I am. I've always been. I've been on the public stage since I was 30 years of age, and what you see is what you get. I'm concerned about my country.
What are you concerned
I believe
about?
You're going to be.
You're coming off of a Republican administration for 8 years.
Well, it's the world we live in, Charlie. We're going to need adults. We're going to need someone that's had experience and knows his country and knows his people and knows the world. And the world,
Republicans aren't adults.
The world is well, it's how you approach things, I think, sometimes. The world, we've not come to terms, really, I think, as a nation of the world that we live in. Most of us think Afghanistan and Iraq are the war. It's not. It's a front right now and part of a challenge. It's going to cost us a lot more money. For example, and I say I can do it freely and openly and tell the truth and have the luxury of doing that because of the way I'm approaching it. That's part of it. It's just going to cost us more money. We're talking about declining military budgets. It ain't going to happen. It's going to be more and greater. We need to level with the American people about where we are and what our challenges are. It's part of the problem we got in Iraq right now. We didn't do that sufficiently. In terms of our economy, we're bankrupting our entitlement programs. We all know that our entitlement programs are going to take over our entire budget, that it's unsustainable, that we've got to do something about it. This allows me to talk about it. You mentioned the Social Security plan I laid out. Nobody else has done that because it's considered to be politically dangerous. It's got to be dealt with. The unity we're going to need in this country that we don't have now. There's no credibility coming from any source in Washington, D.C., justified or not. Who's going to believe the next leader? You've got to reverse that process. You got to do things differently. I'm offering myself up saying, look, I want you to have the best president that you can get. If you think I'm the guy, we can do some wonderful things. And if you don't think I'm the guy, I'll just go back to being the happiest guy you ever met.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Pleasure.